because the way that I put it in, I can't even use a temporary program to be able to create a file for 21.
Have you called?
They said until we get the new computers.
Oh, you mean from the state?
Yeah, UAN. UAN said that. Yeah, I already discussed
Okay.
them about that.
Okay, thank you everybody for showing up. Today is November 16th. It's a little after 6 o'clock. We have a road budget meeting. We'll stand up and do the pledge of allegiance to the beat circle. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a moment of silence, please. Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee McLaughlin,
Present.
trustee Mann,
Present.
trustee McGuire.
Present.
We also have 3 citizens and Mr. Steve Wolf in attendance for our bit meeting tonight. Road department meeting, budget meeting.
Okay, so you ready to take forward, Steve?
Yes, let's get right to it. On the agenda, just like last fire department work session, I posed questions to each trustee to consider. That be on the agenda. Under letter A, critical discussions before we can actually finalize a budget. We'll go through some of those things. The first part is review of projected end of year 2020 fiscal budget. We don't have it, obviously. We're a month and a half or short away, but we are still in a very good position in terms of not being at zero or negative number in the road department. And we don't have enough funding to do all the things we want to do. But this year's budget, there were only 2 budget transfers done all year long. We had other departments that had multiple 10s to 20 transfers done. This budget survived a year with changes and done to it. So my suggestion as we go down through this, I've given you last year's appropriations of 1.2 of 220, which is what we appropriated last year. And I want to stay with the same appropriations for this year, except there might be a couple changes as we go through these items on what I've proposed to you guys. And then, we can make number adjustments wherever we need to. But the budget did very well this year. It's a little tight on some categories, but that's because you had unknown expenses with COVID. So, we'll be getting reports from Fiscal Officer Edwards. We get 3 more, don't we, before the end of the year? We get 1 at tomorrow's meeting, and then 2 in December, don't we? So we should know better where we're at, and know what we have remaining at the end of the year. Fiscal Officer Edwards, I want you to explain to the trustees for me, what do you do at the end of the year when there's credit balances in each department? Where does that money go?
So
Could you answer that question for them?
I could, but I'm not sure what exactly you're asking me where it goes.
Okay, does that money go into a savings account and then you start working off the new tax levies that come in? Or does that money get rolled over into the new budget, combined with what we project to be our revenue for next year?
You don't get carry. Isn't it carryover about every year in the road department?
Not in the past.
There's not any road
The
carryover?
UAN clears out 0. That's why I'm asking her.
There's still carryover.
It's
Yeah, but it's not accounted for. So you've got to, that's why I'm asking the question.
Okay, I still get so enough, but I'll tell you what I think you're asking. At the end of the year, everything basically zeroed out as far as appropriation. The money's still in the account. You have to then reappropriate. So you have the revenue has money in it. You have a revenue for it, it has money in it, but it hasn't been appropriated. And then when the tax, so whatever you have left over from this year is still sitting there in the revenue. Appropriation zeroes out. Then the taxes that we project to come in this year also get added into there, to that number, which gives you your total revenue for that, and that's what you can appropriate.
Okay, okay.
So it doesn't go to any savings account or anything, it just sits there for you to appropriate. Now, you can leave money, you can carry it over to another year if you want to leave it in appropriation, but that just makes it a little bit harder for the audit when they do all that. So we usually want to try to pay all our bills, zero out our funds, then when I close the end of the year out, all the appropriation zeroes out, and you reappropriate what you want in there. So all your projected stuff and everything is, but it's still sitting there in the revenue. That's what's ever left over. So say if
Unless you reappropriate it, it'll stay there in the revenue account,
Right.
is what you're saying.
Yeah, so if you have $10,000 total in your budget, that all goes back to the revenue and sits there waiting for you to appropriate.
Okay.
But you also have the revenue where you have to put them in the right places too, like property tax, there's a line for that in the revenue fund. And I don't think you have that sheet here, the revenue and, property tax, there's certain ones, the track, not this is the road department, I remember. Well, you got several different funds, you got 2021 was gasoline tax,
Mhm.
at 2011 we did the motor vehicle tax, so there's several lines on each one of those you have to. The road and bridge, fund gets the majority of the money.
It's 2031, right?
Yes, that's 2031, it gets the majority of the money, all the money for the property tax. And then each month we get an allotment, and those get spread out among, 2011, which is the motor vehicle tax, 2021, which is the gasoline tax, and 2231, which is the permissive motor vehicle license tax. We get amount every month, and we have to, appropriate the amount that we get, kind of guess what we got that carries over each year. And sometimes we get more than one, sometimes we get less, most companies we get more. So,
Well,
that's why 2231 was so high, because of, the permissive motor vehicle license test, because you usually don't use that.
Right, plus I don't think we appropriated it, we used last year, because we didn't know with the new gas tax when it was gonna start being collected. Plus, we didn't know COVID was gonna be such a good or bad thing, and so nobody drove, so we didn't get much extra tax anyway.
And then 2041, of course, we don't test that because we don't have any income coming in,
Right.
very little.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. And the reason why I asked that of trustees is last year's appropriation that we did not have the new account set up for the capital improvements. We had a temporary budget rolling into the new year, and finally, we set up 3 capital improvements, one for road, one for fire, and one for general. Fire had money at the time to put into it, so they allocated $175,000, I think, to fire originally. We did not have those appropriated, so I want to see what the numbers are by the end of the year. I want to put away into that capital improvement fund an X amount of dollars based on, before we do our combine of our rollover versus next year's revenue. Next year's revenue by taxes is projected to be $282,186 plus $110. We have a levy on the ballot that only generates $110. So your total on that, again, is $282,246. And Mike, to your question or point you made, that's without the rollover money. So that's the projected revenue that the taxpayers would pay this year. So on my list of questions that I need you trustees to consider and come back to me with answers after today. We gave you the allocation sheet I did as a proposal last meeting. You'll get the same thing on Wednesday night. But I proposed those split of salaries based on the Ohio Revised Code, based on how much work is being done in each of the departments and the assignments that you trustees have taken. So based on that, this budget that I'm suggesting that we move forward is to adopt last year's, this allocation salary would fit right into that budget. We actually would be a little bit overfunded in some of the accounts. Now comes the, we'll come back to this question, but I want to bring it up. What purchases or acquisitions do you want to make in the road department next year? The next question is, for current debt service or purchase agreements already in place, do we have, anything to encumber for next year, like loans or anything? So because you did not move forward with issue 2, I know we don't have that loan or debt service. Is there anything else, Tracy, that you know of that the road department currently has debt service on?
I'm not clear on the radio, please.
Okay, I'll just explain
Because
that.
you're only getting, I only see the bill for a quarter. I don't see first, second, and third quarter bill.
Because we can have them.
Oh, okay.
The fire department, myself, went together to talk to Montgomery County Radio Systems because we didn't know if we had the right inventory of 8 radios, where were they? Or did we have any missing? Or were we being charged wrong or right? So the road department turned out had portable radios that were missing. They have been shut off, and the sheriff's department's trying to find them. And they were missing prior to the changeover to the road department that we have today. But irregardless, we found, Tracy, that we were assigned 5 licenses for radios, for portable radios for the road department. And the cost on those are, I believe, $20 or $25 a month to the regional dispatch. We don't have a loan on that. We didn't buy those radios. The sheriff's department's given them to the township to use. We just have to pay a monthly fee now based on that radio fee. The fire department's always paid radio fees for all their radios, but we found out that they had a few that they were being overcharged for. So we got the fire department's bill to come down a little bit just because we took time to do an audit. So that should help you a little bit on the radio fees.
So I was concerned whether we had, because the fire department had a loan on.
They still have a loan on all theirs.
Right, and I didn't know if the road department had, because at one time I remember that it was being discussed, there was a loan, but maybe something happened.
Well, they bought like 8 years ago, or 7 base units that went into all the, like the backhoe, went into the dump trucks. They bought, but that's all been paid off. So these radios they give us to use now we don't have a loan on, we have no debt service other than the monthly fee for the dispatch.
So, because I remember one time during that, everybody was out the storm cutting trees, and when I was out, there was a bunch of radios in there on that table.
That was fire. They
Okay.
were green, the green
No,
ones?
they
that
were
you-
yellow.
Yellow, well, they're bright green, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the fire department system that they bought years ago, and they've got one more, I think we talked about it at the last meeting. We have one more year or year and a half, and those radios are completely paid off.
Yeah.
So the fire department will have more money to use next year when they don't have that debt payment. Well, I can't find any debt that the road department has today. And so but I wanted to make sure we incorporated that in this budget if there was anything that I didn't know about.
The only debt that I report to the county are the building, the radio, and all the loan for the fire. I don't think, there's nothing else that I report to the county.
Okay, thanks, I appreciate it. So next thing is, the only thing we did run short on here at the end of the year was the PDRS. Because we had hired, some seasonal on top of part-time or whatever, so I don't know what that figure needs to be. So we're gonna have to, that'll be the number one thing that we have to,
It's 14%.
14%.
Yeah, but you also gotta make sure you cover Medicare too. And you
Yeah, I kinda threw that in there under workers' comp at the next thing, so trustees, what we're talking about is the extra expense besides hourly wages for the road department employees. That was gonna have to make an adjustment from last year's appropriation in January.
And also the salary, besides their salary that you pay them, 10% of that salary also goes to OPER.
14.
14 for OPER, 10% from their salary. say additional on.
Well, that's
the
right, that's
salary.
right, that's right. But that's coming from their salary.
Right, but yeah, that's what I'm saying, and when you do the salary, make sure you add that 10%.
Okay, so that's the second item, we have to go back and double check after tonight. And I will get with Tracy to be able to find those two numbers out and add it to last year's appropriation. The next thing is a recommendation by the, well, I've talked to loss control and whatnot to keep things solvent for the township. There are townships in Ohio that choose a policy about every year what's left over at the end of the year for budget. You decide on a percentage, whether it's as low as 1% or 5%, or you can go up higher. Each year you can adjust it. And any money left over on rollover, a percentage of it goes to your capital improvement fund. So you have some money saved for a disaster or a dump truck that breaks down that you have to go buy one. Or you can build funds to build a new road department building someday. But we put in those accounts, just like Chief Lutz did. We put those in place so we could start putting money into it. So I'm asking you trustees to consider establishing a policy for all departments of a minimum of what should be saved each year before rollover goes into the new fiscal year. So we can at least assure that each department is building a savings account. The money I know might be sitting in some regular account, but no one knows that that's dedicated to a savings for the future purchase of capital equipment. We need to encumber some money, even if it's silly as it sounds. I'd say $5 a year. Right now, you're saving nothing. Plus, I'll just say a large percentage of 1,308 townships have at least $1 in Star, Ohio, or some other investment account. We do not. As a township, we have a savings account, but we have nothing that's in an investment account. So I'm trying to get the township more solvent by saying, let's put some money away that can't be touched unless you all three regulate that money. And then also look at, down the road, putting some money away as a township each year based on your investment policy. And Tracy's even said that we don't have one, or if you had one, it was too many years ago. So Tracy can know that she's gonna take a percentage of that money and put it away for what a better term, or a normal term is rainy day fund. But right now, if you were to have your money dry up, you have nothing sitting back in an investment. So you need to think about developing a policy, either now or into the first of the year, that says every department has to budget a certain percentage that has to go into an investment account and/or capital account. So you can secure that the fire department, the road department, and all your other operations will have money set aside when that day comes that you need to buy that new piece of apparatus.
But this is not for emergencies, then it's for new stuff.
It could be new stuff, it could be for an emergency too.
So,
The capital can't be, but an investment you can.
so when a capital, I think we should focus, my opinion, this is my thought, we should focus on that capital fund, because right now, investments are something our township should be looking at, how we're gonna increase the general fund, because the general fund is what is the backup, is the umbrella fund, that if any of those other funds run out of money, they should be able to have enough money in that general fund to be able to help those other departments. Since none of the other departments can transfer money over to any other ones, like the road can't give it to the fire, and vice versa, or any of those, the only one who could do that is the general fund. So trustees should be looking at the general fund and trying to have that to help with emergencies. And then we should be focusing one thing at a time, and that would be that, if that's what you want to do, capital investment first, and then capital improvement first, and then investment later when we get more stability. Because our township is not ready for investments yet.
Right. Well, I don't have to invest when we're spending more money we're bringing in. So in the Schedule A, am I looking at that right, guys? So we have the third line down, Road and Bridge Fund, $110, that's the one that Steve mentioned, well, I have $110 income. And then we have a road and bridge fund of $648. And then the next one is $217,488. That's it, correct?
1, 2, 3, yeah. It comes up with a total, but he said 282, 245, 62.
Okay. And if you add up, there's a lot of papers in here, but one papers we need are the ones for the road. We're talking about road tonight. So if you add up your road and bridge, the different accounts you have in there, gas tax, the special fund. In the special fund, you spend $70,000. In the gas tax, you're spending $90,500. In the road and bridge, $597,600. So that's a total of $758,100. And we're only bringing in $282. We're spending all the surplus.
Okay, so when the budget was proposed by the former road superintendent, you were at 867,000. We trimmed it down to 751.
Okay, to really have that argument, the budget needs to have last year's figures in it, not just the appropriations of this year. We have what we did in fire and have, okay, here's the budget in 2 years ago, here's the budget last year, and here's what we're proposing for this year, so we can see what the difference is. Just throwing us these numbers out as in a blind, and just the numbers, a few minutes before the meeting starts, we don't really know what we're looking at.
All right, so the fire department had a meeting with the fiscal officer and another individual to do all that on a Saturday, and I'm not given that time. So when do I have time to do that? By myself. If you want it that way, I need the help just like any other department receives.
Don't you have, take the Excel program, take the budget from
I don't
last
have that
year?
Excel program, it hasn't been given to me.
Okay,
So
so, still,
if
okay,
that's what
okay.
you want, I'm
Okay,
100%
okay, so
agree.
that's comparing, that's a statement comparing last year's and this year's, and why we're spending so much money. How are we gonna justify to the state that we're spending twice what we're bringing in? I mean, come 2022, we're gonna be broke.
But we haven't spent that. If you look at today's appropriation today, as of today, we're well below that. What she provides every week. We're well below that number. And prior to me, 3 to 4 years, they ran much higher than this.
They ran more than $758,000 to the road budget.
As appropriated, yes.
So,
I need to see it on paper.
We can get all those reports for you. So, I think you will find that you're mistaken about spending $751,000 because that's not right. We appropriated certain amounts of money with the rollover in there, but we don't spend all the rollover. In fact, Tracy and I talk about conserving that money.
Okay. Well, let's see what we spent last year.
so as of November 1st,
November 1st?
yeah,
Okay.
it was $817,013.24. That was for 2020. As of November 1st, that's all four, that's 2021, 2020, 2011, 2041, 2031, and 2232. That's the total of all of those.
So that's my
So that
reason
amount-
too.
That amount, so if I go to the one you're just talking about, the 2031 is the one where that number you just gave me. That one comes out to be, from last year, as of November 1st, we spent $611,000, about $31.24.
So we can look at previous years, Mike, too, to see, so you can see a more clear path, but we're going downward in terms of expenses than up. For instance, when the trustees voted to not have the road superintendent anymore, you saved over $86,000 by doing that. Because that's healthcare, salary, PRS. You save that money in that road department. Now, we hired more people this year to do the work that the people, the residents want you to do. You can't do it with a part-time person that we had starting January 1. You have to fund your department to do the work. Now, if you're worried about deficit spending, then we're, or something like that, we need to, take the money out before the year starts and put it in, as Tracy's, we agreed with her, put it in the capital improvement fund or put it into Star Ohio or whatever. Either way, we need to encumber that money and not have it in your regular budget. But this is the way the township has done the business before I got here, and this is how we've had to conduct it over the last 4 years. The same process. So we're not spending the money, otherwise we'd be in negative in every account, and there's not a single negative in the road department. But you have to appropriate that money somewhere. And you can't hide, or not hide it, that's bad, what's the word for it? You can't set it on the shelf. There's nowhere to set it but put it into the road budget.
So we have about an average of 350,000 carryover over the last few years on the average. So I can print that, I can give you that's in there, when you get that report every month, resources available for appropriation, that's the first column. Yeah, the resources available, that report. So, I mean, I can give you those reports for previous years, but it's been about around 340,000 rollover. And then you add that number, and that's for the 2031. Then you add that number to the revenue that we're getting, and that's the total amount that you can kind of guess that you will have for the budget. What was the number you said it was?
758, 100.
2031, right? So that's like $1 million that you have to spend. If that's the numbers that were coming.
That number was appropriated to spend.
That was appropriated, or was that the revenue?
No, that's appropriated. Revenue is 282,
Okay.
246, huh? We're talking about the same number.
Okay, so let me go look at the revenue here. So we got it. I mean, the one that I gave for 2031 is 315, so it's about 665, about approximately. And you're spending, you said you're spending 700 and something?
Appropriated stuff.
This is just 2031, right? That's just for 2031, not all 4 funds.
No.
What are they for all 4?
2031 is 597, 600.
Okay, so you're right, you're okay then for 2031. So that's what, I could add them all up, but there's certain things that come out of certain funds, so it wouldn't be. Only the road and bridge get the property tax. When you get in the license fee, that goes into 2011, and you get the gasoline tax that goes into 2021, and those come every month, they're given to us every month. But only the road and bridge get this tax budget that you gave us. That only goes into the road and bridge fund. And those other funds get those other fees, permissive license tax, motor vehicle tax, gasoline. And again, the cemetery is generated from what we do. If we decide to have a cemetery, then we get those fees from that. So that's why that one is so low, because we're not active with our cemetery.
So, like a year ago, I sat in front of your trustees and asked you what roads did you want paved, and I never got an answer. And so you can't set a budget up without having answers. And you can't let people, there's no way we can shoot in the dark and not know what you want done and then all of a sudden complain after the fact. Or residents do, and rightfully so, that the road didn't get paid. Well, the trustees have to make that decision, and then we have to price it, and then we gotta put it in the budget. So we did everything we could last year to reduce costs, but provide better service and more service than we had. And so I'm coming to you with all these questions because you need to answer them. So we can finalize the budget based on what you trustees want. And then we will be the laborer that will go out and take care of it. And so I'm as conservative as ever, and I don't want to spend any money, but you can't run on 200,000. You got to figure out how you're going to do it each year and keep yourself alive. When you're only bringing in $110 on one of your road levies, that's gonna completely go away next year, although it's only $110, but it's a declining tax base. Our township did go up 7%, but that's on new construction. So, you know, down the road, it doesn't matter what you do with one person, part-time, or you've got aging equipment, you have no schedule to replace them, no money set aside to replace equipment. You have nothing that's under 5 years old or 8 years old in any other department at this point, other than the lawnmowers that you purchased a couple of years ago. You've got major capital improvements coming down the road, and how are you gonna pay for them? And I don't know what the answer is. Labor doesn't stop, whether you have one person or 4 or 5. So I went with a plan that worked really well this year, is we had seasonal that will be finishing up here in November. They will not be on the payroll all winter long, and you'll be down to 2 full-timers and the rest on call, 4 on call if we need them, part-timers. So because there's not as much work to do outside in the winter, other than when snow flies.
Okay, so let's talk about what roads. That's a question, you know, residents are gonna ask, what roads are we gonna do?
Right.
So under the special revenue, the 2011, not much money in there, and I don't see anything. Contracted services at 13,000. That's not roads, that's something else, I'm see.
No, we use that sometimes on contracts. You know, somebody comes in and does a deep patch or a big hole, we can take that money.
Yeah, but not roads. Okay. Under the gas tax, roadway projects, you got 10,000. And under road and bridge, you have 80 set aside. So.
And we don't have to do that much this year if you're worried about the budget. You just have to decide what those figures need to be.
So it's 103 total.
Mm-hmm.
If we take that 103 and find some matching money, we do quite a bit with it.
You're not gonna get any.
Not get it?
No, you don't qualify now in the issue 2, so there's no other programs to go for in 2021. Because you turned down the Derby Road project. And because your population is over 5,000, I've explained to you, you do not qualify for what they call the secondary small government program where most townships get their money. In Columbus in the fall, they have a separate funding mechanism put aside by the state legislature for small communities of 5,000 and less.
So since we turned down issue 2, we cannot apply again, you're saying?
You're gonna apply, but you're not gonna receive it.
Well, first of all, you missed
That's something to
2021. You missed.
There hasn't been a township receive any money except for this, what happened here with the COVID. There hasn't been a township that received money on those, out of that program in at least 5 years. Because you're competing against the city of Dayton, you're competing against Montgomery County engineers. Montgomery County gets a separate application for their environmental